Psalm 145. I will extol thee, my God, O King, and I will bless thy name forever and ever. Every day will I bless thee, and I will praise thy name forever and ever. Great is the Lord, and greatly to be praised, and his greatness is unsearchable. One generation shall praise thy works to another, and shall declare thy mighty acts. I will speak of the glorious honor of thy majesty, and of thy wondrous works. And men shall speak of the might of thy terrible acts, and I will declare thy greatness. They shall abundantly utter the memory of thy great goodness, and shall sing of thy righteousness. The Lord is gracious and full of compassion, slow to anger, and of great mercy. The Lord is good to all, and his tender mercies are over all his works. All thy works shall praise thee, O Lord, and thy saints shall bless thee. They shall speak of the glory of thy kingdom, and talk of thy power, to make known to the sons of men his mighty acts, and the glorious majesty of his kingdom. Thy kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and thy dominion endureth throughout all generations. The Lord upholdeth all that fall, and raiseth up all those that be bowed down. The eyes of all wait upon thee, and thou givest them their meat in due season. Thou openest thine hand, and satisfiest the desire of every living thing. The Lord is righteous in all his ways, and holy in all his works. The Lord is nigh unto all them that call upon him, to all that call upon him in truth. He will fulfill the desire of them that fear him. He also will hear their cry, and will save them. The Lord preserveth all them that love him, but all the wicked will be destroyed. My mouth shall speak the praise of the Lord, and let all flesh bless his holy name forever and ever.
Numbers move you, but some can stop you in your tracks, like the tens of thousands of people who were diagnosed with certain HPV-related cancers.
All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Kakadash. Double honors unto the apostles and the elders, GMS, who rule well, teach well, being great examples to his younger brothers, and peace and blessing and salutation to the hopeful lake out there pushing his word in truth and in sincerity across the four winds in the name of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, pushing to get up out of here. Shalom to the hopeful lake, the believers, the listeners whom have came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah. Bawa Kwatawab, to all you Akim Wa Akwatium, tuning in this morning, to water, for tuning in. So today, we're gonna get into some history. All right, it's gonna be a lesson based on history, as we're all familiar, with the book of Maccabees and dealing with the revolt. Okay, and what I want to do is just go through some history that led to the Maccabean, revolt. And what it shows is, once again, the accuracy of the scriptures. Okay, the scriptures are extremely, accurate. All right, when you go through, okay, now it's gonna be, kind of a longer lesson, kind of tedious, so lock in for the ride, But if you enjoy history, this would be something, good, to have, all right, understanding on. Okay. Now, what I want to start off with, because I have a video queued up for the lesson, that's gonna go into it. going to the lead up to the revolt. Now, what I want to do is start off with this story here, okay, and pretty much kind of set the stage, okay, for the lesson. So I'm gonna go straight to the scriptures. Start off in the second book of Maccabees, okay, dealing with the third chapter, because what we have to understand uh, is when you go through the first and second book of Maccabees, it's not in chronological order. When you go to the first and second book of Maccabees, when you read the second book of Maccabees, the third chapter, all right, is going into the history before, okay, things went down in the first chapter of first Maccabees. So when you go to the third chapter of second Maccabees, these are accounts that happened before, okay, the first chapter of first Maccabees. And I'm gonna try to explain it, best as I can. I say if you have any questions, feel free to ask. This is an open question lesson. Okay. Um real quick. So let's start off. Okay. So let's get Maccabees 3, second Maccabees 3, and we're gonna start at 1. We're pretty much gonna go through, this whole account, okay, and kind of set the stage for the rest of the lesson. Okay, so second Maccabees 3 and 1, it says, now when the holy city was inhabited with all peace, and the laws were kept very well because of the godliness of Ananias the high priest and his hatred of wickedness. Okay, so you had righteous, leadership, amongst, all right, the southern kingdom, okay, because these are the descendants of our people that returned, all right, from the Persian Mede Empire to build the second temple, okay, and this is an era where, all right, our people, enjoyed a time of peace, and it began with the righteous leadership of Onias, all right, the high priest. And it says, it came to pass that even the kings themselves did honor the place and magnify the temple with their best gifts. Yeah, and these are heathen kings that were doing this. And so much that Seleucus, king of Asia, of his own revenues, bear all the costs belonging to the service of sacrifice. Okay, and if a brother could put Proverbs 16 and 7, let's put Proverbs 16 and 7. So, you had Ananias, okay. The scripture referred to him as being godly, and he had a hatred of wickedness, okay. But then he received favor from heathen kings. All right, the nation will receive in favor for heathen kings because basically, when our law is kept, you know, we behave as a noble people, okay. All right, we behave as a noble people, and there was honored, even by the different kings of the heathens, okay. And the scriptures tell us, all right, in Proverbs 16 and 7, if a brother post it, and we'll read that and go on down in the story. Yep, the water Akia. This is the brother Halak Yasha Allah, okay. This is Proverbs 16 and 7 says, when a man's ways please the Lord, Yahweh Bashem Al Shai, he maketh even his enemies to be at peace with him, man. Okay, and this is an example of that. Okay, during the time of Ananias. All right. Now, reading on, it says, but one Simon of the tribe of Benjamin, who was made governor of the temple, fell out with the high priest about disorder in the city. Okay, and this is a wicked nigga. Okay, this is Simon of the tribe of Benjamin. Okay, it says, and when he could not overcome Onias, he gave him Apollonius, all right, the son of Tracis, who then was governor of Ceo, all right, Syria of Phoenix. Okay, so he, fell out with Ananias, and mainly because this nigga was trying to incorporate heathen customs, man, and Ananias was getting on his ass. Okay, and whole ass nigga went to the heathen, man. Okay, verse 6, it says, and told him that the treasure of Jerusalem was full of infinite sums of money, so that the multitude of their riches did not pertain to the count of the sacrifices was innumerable, and that it was possible to bring it all into the king's hands. So this nigga gonna get mad because Ananias, okay, basically was against those heathen customs being brought, all right, amongst our people. So he go tells the heathen about the treasury, man. Because Simon, being a Benjamite, he was a governor, of over, the temple, which he had an office, but he wasn't a priest, okay, because he wasn't from that line. All right, but we're gonna show how bad it had got with the priesthood during this time. Okay, and remember, all this is happening before the Maccabean revolt. This is before, all these accounts happen before. It's going to lead up to their revolt. Okay. It says, now when Apollonius came to the king, he had showed him of the money, wherefore he was told, all right, the king chose out Helidorius, his treasurer, and sent him with a commandment to bring him the foresaid money. So now you have, okay, the king wanted to come, one of these Greek kings wanted to come what, man? Okay, pretty much take the money that Simon told him about, all right, within the temple. It says, so forthwith Helidorius took his journey under a color of visiting the cities, all right, Selos, Syria and Phoenice, but indeed to fulfill the king's purpose. And when he had come to Jerusalem and had been courteously received of the high priest of the city, he told him what intelligence was given him of the money, and declared wherefore he came, and asked if these things were so indeed. So when he came, all right, Ananias doesn't know why he's there, but he's greeting him. Okay, he is received and greeted by Ananias, and then he gets to talking about the money. It says, then the high priest told him that there was such money laid up for the relief of the widows and the fatherless children. See, Ananias was a man of great integrity, man. Okay, we had a system where money was put up for the fatherless and the widows, man. Okay, because if you're a widow and you have children which will make them fatherless, you will be vulnerable because you lost your breadwinner, you lost your protection. So Ananias, okay, being over the affairs, because pretty much the high priest was, which the video we're gonna watch is gonna go into, like the position of a high priest, especially in these times, were over the spiritual affairs and also over the economic, and also the high priest was a representation to all these other nations. It was a very, high office, man. Okay, and someone that has, ill intentions will take advantage of that office, which we're going to see. Okay, and it says, and that some of it belonged to Hyrcanus, son of Tobias, a great dignity, and not as that wicked Simon had misinformed. The sum whereof in all was 400 talents of silver and 200 of gold. and that it was altogether impossible that such wrong should be done unto them that had committed, all right, it to the holiness of the place and to the majesty and the inviolable uh uh, what's it, saint, this sanctifying of the temple, all right, honored all over the world. But Helidorus, because of the king's commandment given him, because pretty much Simon lied. Simon made it seem like it was just an innumerable fortune in there, man. And Simon knew what that money was being used for, man. Okay? He was just a wicked nigga, man. All right? It says, but Helidorus, because of the king's commandment given him, said that in any wise it must be brought into the king's treasury, because he had already got the commandment, you know? And it says, so at that day which he appointed, he entered into order this matter, wherefore there was no small agony throughout the whole city. Okay? But the priests, all right, prostrating themselves before the altar in their priest vestments, called unto heaven upon him that made a law concerning these things to be kept, that they should safely be pressured, all right, for such, all right, means that they should be safely preserved for such as had committed them to be kept. Then whoso had looked, all right, the high priest in the face, it would have wounded his heart. Yeah, because Ananias was sick, man, you know, because he knew if that money was removed, what it would do, you know, to the people, man. Okay? It says, for his countenance and the change of his color declared the inward agony of his mind. It says, for the man was so compassed with fear and horror of the body that it was manifest to them that looked upon him what sorrow he now had in his heart. Others ran flocking out of their houses to the general supplication, because the place was like to come into contempt. And the women, girt with sackcloth under their breasts, abounded in the streets, and the virgins that were kept in ran, some to the gates and some to the walls, and others looked out of the windows, and all holding their heads toward heaven made supplication. So they're begging. Okay, men and women are begging, Yahweh Shema Shai. Then it would have pitied a man to see the falling down of the multitude of all sorts, and the fear of the high priest being in such agony. Then they called upon the Almighty Lord to keep the things committed of trust safe and sure for those that had committed them. Nevertheless, Helidorus executed that which was decreed. Got now Edomite. All right, he don't give a damn about none of that. He come to get, fulfill that commandment. It says, now as he was there present himself with his guard about the treasury, the Lord of spirits and the prince of all power caused a great apparition, so that all that presumed to come in with him were astonished at the power of the Most High, and fainted and were sore afraid. Them angels showed up. Okay? It says, for there appeared unto them a horse, all right, a chariot, with a terrible rider upon him, and adorned with a very fair covering, and he ran fiercely and smote at Helidorus with his forefeet, and it seemed that he that sat upon the horse had complete harness of gold. It was an angel decked out. Okay? It was an angel showed up decked out, man. Okay? And it says, moreover, two other young men appeared before him, notable in strength. Yeah, another two. It says, notable in strength, excellent in beauty, and comely in apparel. Yep. So just two, just powerful jakes. Okay. And the scriptures describe him as being, like handsome. Okay, who stood by him on either side and scourged him continually and gave him many sore stripes. And Helidorus fell into the ground and was very compassed, all right, was compassed with great darkness. Yeah, he knocked out. Okay, pretty much they were beating the brakes off Helidorus, man. Okay, and he was knocked out. It said, but they that were with him took him and put him into a litter. Yeah, like like they had to do, Red on Friday. His daddy had to pick him up and, and put him in the car. I told you about coming around here and messing with these people, man. You see? But Doris got their work. Okay? And that was Yahweh Shema Shah answering the prayers, of his people. And it said, thus him that lately came with a great train and with all his guard into the said treasury, they carried out, being unable to help himself with his weapons, and manifestly they acknowledged the power of the Most High. For he by the hand of the Most High was cast down and lay speechless without all hope of life, man. You damn near finna beat to death. Okay? But they praised the Lord that had miraculously honored his own place, for the temple which a little afore was full of fear and trouble, when the Almighty Lord appeared, was filled with joy and gladness, man. And that's how we're going to feel in these times, man. When we see the miracles that the Lord is going to perform on our behalf, man. Because this was an example of the Lord lifting up a standard. Okay? It says, then straightways certain of Helidorius' friends prayed Ananias that he will call upon the Most High to grant him life, who lay ready to give up the ghost. Okay? So you had Ananias prayed that Helidorius wouldn't die. Okay? Ananias was a man of great integrity, man. He great balance. He was always thinking of the bigger picture for his people, and it's going to show you why. It says, so the high priest, suspecting lest the king, all right, misconceived that some treachery had been done to Helidorus by the Jews, offered a sacrifice for the health of the man. So he was like, look, Ananias was like, well, I'm going to pray that Helidorus be okay, so that the king don't think that he came out here and we just put him to death, so it wouldn't be a backlash on Jerusalem. Okay, Onias is a great example of good leadership, man. Okay, it says now as the high priest was making an atonement, the same young men in the same clothing appeared and stood beside Helidorius, saying, "Give Onias, all right, the high priest great thanks, in so much as for his sake the Lord had granted thee life." And this shows you that how obedience, okay, and faith puts you in favor with Yahweh Bashim al Shah, that he grants your request. you know. So as Ananias made the sacrifice and put those prayers up, where the word came from on high, from those angels, just to pretty much, all right, stand down. Okay, you see that? The no, Ananias well favor, man. To them prayers went up to the spiritual realm. Then the decree came back down from the spiritual realm to those angels to stand down. So that's why those angels said, look, they were telling Helidorus, look, thank Ananias, okay, that you living, okay, but go tell your people about the power of the almighty power, man, of Yahweh Bashim al Shah, okay. I'll read it again. It said, now as the high priest was making an atonement, the same young men in the same priest clothing appeared and stood beside Helidorus, saying, give Ananias the high priest great thanks, in so much as for his sake the Lord have granted thee life. And now seeing that thou hast been scourged from heaven, declare unto all the men the mighty power of the Most High. And when they had spoken these words, they appeared no more. Yep, they was, called back to the spiritual realm. So Helidorus, after he had offered, all right, sacrifice unto the Lord, and made great vows unto him that saved his life, and saluted Ananias, returned with his host to the king. Okay, he humbled all the way down. Okay, it said, then testified he to all the men the works of the great power which he had seen with his eyes. And when the king asked Helidorus who might be a fit man to be sent yet once again to Jerusalem, all right, he said, if thou hast any enemy or traitor, so when he came back, he was like, okay, well, who we need to send back out there? you know. So when he, so this is what Helidorus said, it says, if thou hast any enemy or traitor, send him thither, and thou shalt receive him well scourged if he escape with his life. For in that place, no doubt, there is an special, all right, power of the Most High. For he that dwelleth in heaven hath his eye on that place and defended it, and have beaten and destroyed them that come to hurt it. And these things concerning Helidorus and the keeping of the treasury fell out on this sort. Okay, so Helidorus like, look, send your enemies and your traitors over there. Okay, but don't send nobody, that that you good with. Okay, send an enemy or traitor over there, and they gonna get scourged. All right, and that's if they escape with their life. Okay, he fully well knew, all right, that we had a power that will fight for us as long as we was obedient. Okay, but I brought that account out to show that now what you're going to see is wicked niggas plotting, all right, on the office of high priest. And when the priesthood became corrupted and wicked, that's when Jake started to suffer under that priesthood, man. And we're gonna get it. So I want to stop it there. I mean, I want to go back now. Okay, I want to go back. I want to get the get this video, which is from the channel Kings in general. Okay, which the guy does a pretty good job, going into history, you know.
Every winter, Jewish communities across the globe come together in celebration of the festival of Hanukkah. The image of the menorah and its iconic 8 candles shining through the dark winter night is
So it's gonna go into what they call Hanukkah as well, which is the rededication of the temple. Okay, it's gonna go into all the history leading up to the revolt. So we're gonna follow this history. Go into precepts and bring it out. And Lord will, this is informative. And edifying.
one of the most visually recognizable aspects of traditional Jewish culture. But from where does this ancient holiday ritual stem? To answer, we must go back 2,200 years to a time when the descendants of Alexander ruled in the land of Judea, and tell a story of the ancient Jewish people's struggle to win liberty against the forces of the Hellenic world. Our sponsors allow us to release videos regularly without missing a beat, so shout out. By the era of classical antiquity, the independent kingdoms of Israel and Judah were in terminal decline. As a result, the history of the Jewish people soon came to be defined by the carousel of foreign empires that took turns conquering and subsequently ruling the ancestral Hebrew homeland. First came the Assyrians, then the Babylonians, then the Persians, who ruled the Jews with a reasonably fair and light hand. Finally, in 332 BC, the Macedonian phalanxes of Alexander would steamroll the Achaemenid Empire out of existence, establishing Classical Greek as the dominant language and culture of the Near East. It is here that the Jewish people became subjects of the Greek world. When Alexander died, his massive
And you see, all those empires that he mentioned, okay, are in Daniel, the 7th chapter. The Syrians, Babylonians, the Persians, the Greeks, all right, and then you will have the Romans. Now, pretty much, like he said, the tribes pretty subjugated, to who was ever in power. Okay. Now, when you go to if a brother can put Zechariah, okay, chapter 1. All right, let's put Zechariah chapter 1, verses 18 and 19. Yeah, Zechariah chapter 18. Zechariah chapter 1, verses 18 and 19. Because the scriptures go into these empires, man. Okay, they played a heavy part in the history, of our people, man. And if you don't understand this history, okay, the New Testament, okay, does not make sense to you, man. And that's why a lot of people have a very deep misunderstanding of the New Testament because they don't understand this history, man. Okay, that's why the New Testament has been able to be manipulated so much, is because people don't understand the history between, okay, Malachi, all right, and the book of Matthew, man. And this is what we're going through. Now, this is the brother Yashima tribe of Judah. All right, Zechariah 1 and 18 said, Then lifted I up my eyes and saw and beheld 4 horns. Okay, and verse 19, and I said unto the angel that talked with me, What be these? And he answered, These are the 4 horns which have scattered Judah, Israel, and Jerusalem. And thus those kingdoms that he was just speaking of, man. You have the Syrian Babylonian Empire, okay, which is a horn. Then you have the Persians and Medes, okay, the Persian Empire, ultimately, which was one horn. And then you had the Greeks, all right, and then you had the Romans, okay. Under these 4 rulerships was our people scattered, okay. You had the Syrians, okay, bring, all right, the northern kingdom and scatter them, into different lands, okay. Then eventually they left there and came over here to the Americas, and then you had the Southern Kingdom, which was under the uh, the subjugation of the Babylonians, took them captives. Okay, then they was under the Persians, Then you had some return back because everyone didn't come from Persia and come back to Israel. You only had a remnant. Okay, and their remnant is what we're seeing now, because the descendants of their remnant that came from the Persian Empire, okay, this are the people that we were reading about, okay. Ananias, okay, was a descendant of our people that came back from the Persian Empire, okay. They got the priesthood back in order. You read Ezekiel, the 44th chapter, okay. So when the Greeks came into power, when the Greeks took down the Persians, you had a remnant of our people in the land, all right, that was being obedient, okay, as we can see with the account of Ananias, okay. But then eventually you have wicked leadership amongst our people, okay, which will cause a lot of hurt. But then you had the revolt. And then eventually the revolt was put down, all right. The Hasmonean dynasty was eventually put down, by the Romans, okay. And then under the Romans, what do you have? 70 AD, when basically we was pushed out of their land, all right, pushed into Africa, mainly, the northern and interior parts of Africa, where then what we was eventually gathered, okay, and put on boats and shipped off everywhere, man. Mainly over here to the west. So these 4 horns, okay, all right, played a major part in us being scattered. These 4 empires, man. You know, I say, and I'm praying that it's making sense. I say, any questions, feel free to ask. You know, anything that you don't fully understand.
massive Macedonian empire fractured into several monarchies, ruled by his closest comrades and to their descendants. These so-called Diadochi kingdoms were constantly at war with one another, and the region of Judea, being situated in the borderland between Egypt and Seleucid decline. As a result, the history of the available for 30 days. So time. We've also created a special game for the first viewers to click the link. Details will be in the video. By the era of classical antiquity, the independent kingdoms of Israel and Judah were in terminal decline. As a result, the history of the Jewish people soon came to be defined by the carousel of foreign empires that took turns conquering and subsequently ruling the ancestral Hebrew homeland. First came the Assyrians, then the Babylonians, then the Persians, who ruled Jews with a reasonable and light hand. Finally, in 332 BC, the Macedonian phalanxes of Alexander would steamroll the Achaemenid Empire out of existence, establishing Classical Greek as the dominant language and culture of the Near East. It is here that the Jewish people became subjects of the Greek world. When Alexander died, his massive Macedonian empire fractured into several monarchies, ruled by his closest comrades and later their descendants. These so-called Diadochi kingdoms were constantly at war with one another, and the region of Judea, being situated in the borderland between the Ptolemies of Egypt and Seleucids of Syria, became a battleground where the two Macedonian dynasties jockeyed for power and influence. Despite this, life remained fairly peaceful for the Hebrews. The Hellenistic kings generally used the same light touch the Persians had, interfering very little in the region's culture, religion, and internal politics. The Jewish people were ruled semi-autonomously by a high priest of the Judaic faith, who handled matters both religious and secular from the Great Temple of Jerusalem. In 198 BC, Antiochus III had finally expelled the Ptolemies out of Judea, putting the region firmly under the suzerainty of the Seleucid Empire. He lowered taxes and affirmed the Jewish people's freedom to live by their own faith and laws, and for now, Judea was content. Throughout world history, we often see subject peoples of a multi-ethnic empire willingly adopt the language and customs of said empire's rulers in an attempt to improve social mobility, so many Jewish peoples began to practice the Greek culture of their suzerains. This phenomenon, known as Hellenization, was perpetuated mainly by the upper strata of Jewish society, namely the wealthy priests, merchants, and aristocrats in urban Jerusalem. The Hellenization process was expedited in 175 BC, when the culturally traditionalist high priest, Ananias III, was deposed by his Philhellene brother Joshua, better known by his Greek name Jason. Jason would go on to wield his power as high priest to begin transforming Jerusalem into a classically Greek city by building a gymnasium and an ephebium, essentially community centers for Greek education and learning. He also sent Jewish athletes to compete in a mimicry of the Olympic Games hosted by the king in Tyre. There he offered a sacrificial tribute to the Greek demigod Hercules, to whom the games were dedicated. Perhaps his
So let's get, to a little bit of their history, man. Okay. But as you can see, pretty much when you go into it, the Seleucid Empire and the Ptolemy Empire with, out of the four, generals of Alexander that would go on to rule the Macedonian Empire in four different parts. Okay. The Seleucids and Ptolemies became, the most powerful, and they would always, get into it, pretty much over the control of Jerusalem. Okay. Because one thing about it, the control of Jerusalem, these heathens look at, as some type of favor, because they look at, the prosperity of different empires that had control over Jerusalem. Okay, so you will see in history that, you know, even when you read the book of Maccabees, there's a lot of back and forth between, you know, the Ptolemies, all right, and the Seleucid Empire, which there will be the empire of the Seleucid that Antiochus Epiphanes, you know, will come out of. Okay, so let's get a couple, you know, precepts just to, okay, prove that, man. Okay, and this is secular history, all right, but it's all within the Bible. It's all proven, okay, within the Bible, man, showing you the accuracy of prophecy. Okay, now when you go to Daniel, all right, the 8th chapter, all right, start at 1. It says, in the 3rd year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared unto me, even unto me Daniel, after that which appeared unto me at the first. And I saw a vision, and it came to pass, and I saw that I was at Shushan in the palace, which is in the province of Elam, and I saw in a vision, and I was by the river, all right, Uliah. And it says, then I lifted up my eyes and beheld, there stood before the river a ram which had 2 horns, and the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the higher came up last. Okay, and this is the Persian Empire, that ram. Those 2 horns represents the Persians and Medes. Okay, and that horn that became higher was the Persians, because eventually it became the Persian Empire. Okay, the Persians, you know, will overtake the Medes. Okay, it says, I saw the ram pushing westward and northward and southward, which means what? It was expanding. Okay, the empire of, because you look at the Babylonian Empire, look at the Syrian Empire, it's pretty much the same territory. But when the Persians took over, you know, the Babylonians, then you start to see a great expansion, all right, beyond just that Mesopotamian area. Okay, that's why the when you read the book of Esther, it tells you that the Persian province, okay, was 127 provinces, man. Okay, the Persian Empire consisted of 127 provinces. It was real vast, okay, because of the expansion in every direction. Okay, it says, so that none beast, all right, of these other nations might stand before him, neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand, but he did according to his will and became great. And as I was considering, behold, a he goat came from the west, okay, on the face of the whole earth. And this is Alexander, okay, and touched not the ground. And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes, and he came to the ram that had 2 horns, which I had seen standing before the river, and ran unto him in the fear of his power. Man, so this is the Greek Empire coming from the west, which is from Macedonia. Okay, coming from the west, and what? Conquering, all right, running dead into this Persian Empire, this ram. Okay, well, Alexander being that notable horn within that empire, man. Okay, and it says, and he came to the ram that had 2 horns, which I had seen standing before the river, and ran unto him in the fear of his power. And I saw him close unto the ram, all right, and he was moved with color against him, and smote the ram and brake his 2 horns, and there was no power in the ram to stand before him, but he cast him down to the ground and stamped upon him, and there was none that can deliver the ram out of his hand. Therefore the he goat waxed very great, and when he was strong, the great horn, all right, was broken. Okay, Alexander's death, and it came up 4 notable ones. The 4 notable ones, which are those 4 generals. Okay, you had Seleucus, the Ptolemy, Cassandra, and Lysimachus, man. Okay, those 4 generals. Okay, toward the four winds of heaven. All right. And it says that one of them came forth, and out of one of them came forth a little horn, and this is Antiochus, which waxed exceeding great towards the south, and toward the south is going towards Egypt, and toward the east, which is going toward Jerusalem, and toward the pleasant land. Okay. So you see how history, the Bible, all right, prophesied all this history before it happened, because this is being prophesied during the Persian Empire before Alexander was even born. Okay, before his father Philip II was even born, and all this is being prophesied. And that's why you have accounts where you had, different priests, when Alexander came to Jerusalem, and they was telling him that, he was, okay, part of this goat that waxed strong, okay, which was the Greek Empire taking down the Persians, man. And even when you go into the Maccabean, the book of Maccabees, the first chapter, it's going into the same thing. And the Bible is just so accurate, with secular history. It's like, come on, man. Okay, well, the Bible always got to prove itself. Now this is First Maccabees 1:1. It says, and it happened after that Alexander, son of Philip the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Shittim, had smitten Darius, king of the Persians and Medes. Okay, and this is that goat and that horn and that ram, all right, colliding. That he reigned in his stead the first over Greece, and had many wars and won many strongholds, and slew the kings of the earth, and went through the ends of the earth, and took spoils of many nations, insomuch that the earth was quiet before him, whereupon he was exalted, his heart was lifted up, and he had gathered mighty strongholds, and ruled over countries and nations and kings, who became tributaries unto him. And after these things he fell sick, and perceived that he should die, and that's their horn being broken. Okay, wherefore he called his servants, such as were honorable, and had been brought up with him from his youth, all right, and parted his kingdom among them while he was yet alive. So Alexander reigned 12 years, and then died, and his servants bare rule, every one in his place. And after his death, they all put crowns upon themselves, that their sons after them many years, and evils were multiplied in the earth. Okay, evils were multiplied in the earth. Okay, now let's go to this point, because it goes into Jason becoming the high priest. Okay, so you gotta jump to Second Maccabees too, and remember all this is happening before the Maccabean Revolt. Okay, now you go to this guy Jason. All right, which was the brother of Ananias. I'm gonna skip to the point. The nigga Simon, he gonna come back into play too. All right, this is Second Maccabee chapter 4, verse 7 said, but after the death of Seleucus, when Antiochus called Epiphanes took the kingdom, Jason, the brother of Ananias, labored underhand to be high priest, promising unto the king by intercession 360 talents of silver, and another revenue 8 talents. So you had this guy paying for the high priest office, man. Okay, because the benefits and perks that came with it. Okay, a wicked nigga, man. It says, besides this, he promised to assign 150 more if he might have license to set up a place for exercise and for the training up of the youth in the fashions of the heathen, to write them of Jerusalem by the name of Antiochians, okay, calling themselves after a damn Edomite, just like today, you know, because I think it was Jesse Jackson that came up with the term African American, man, for Jake to call themselves after two Edomites, man. Okay, if a brother can fact check that for me, let me see. I might can pull it up. Well, if I'm not mistaken, I'm thinking it was that nigga Jesse Jackass who came up with that term, man. Okay, let me see. Let me see if he give us some. Uh, let's see. It might give us some.
This one's a goner. Two always needs to end on a zero, Rashida. Okay, you totally distracted me. That's not fair. What? Earn cash back that automatically adjusts to where your spending is trending with a City Custom cash card.
Portugal began the African slave trade in Europe about 50 years before.
So I'm gonna share this video. It might give us some insight. But you know, yeah, that wicked nigga Jason. All right, he's like, look, I'm gonna have him, you know, call himself Antiochians, man. Okay, wicked leadership has been the plague amongst our people, you know, throughout the times, man. Okay, but let's watch and see if he give us some.
Masters called them Negroes. That was the official name, and that held for 3 centuries, eventually yielding some space for the use of the word colored. The National Association for the Advancement of Colored People was established in 1909. The United Negro College Fund was established in 1944. Then came the Civil Rights Movement, and those words, Negro and colored, would no longer do. In the mid-1960s, white America was hearing for the first time the proud declaration, Black is beautiful. And with the right to vote finally secured, it was time for Black power. Negro and colored were rewritten to simply Black. Negro and colored remained in the names of some of the older organizations, but they otherwise disappeared from the written or spoken word in America. After 20 years of Black, Jesse Jackson and some leading scholars decided in the late 1980s that it was time for the final name change to African American. At a news conference, Jesse Jackson called to announce a time for the final name change to African as the proper descriptive term. He said, just as we're called colored, but we're not that, and then Negro, but we're not that, to be called Black is just as baseless. Black tells you about skin color and what side of town you live on. African American evokes discussion of the world. Jesse Jackson went on to say that day, every ethnic group in this country has a reference to some land base, some historical cultural base. Roger Wilkins, 10 years older than Jesse Jackson and the leader of the Civil Rights Movement, one of the leaders of the Civil Rights Movement, embraced the change to African American. In 1989, he told Isabel Wilkerson for a New York Times report, whenever I go to Africa, I feel like a person with a legitimate place to stand on this earth. This is the name for all the feelings I've had all these years. And so it is understandable that people like me, people like Joy Reid, who you just heard, who lived through some of those name changes, think of African American as being coined sometime in the 1980s. We now know that that's wrong by about 200 years. Thanks to a report by Jennifer Schuessler in today's New York Times, we now know that the
So you can see, all right, that nigga Jesse Jackass, all right, put that term on Jake, just like this wicked nigga Jason, wanted to put Antiochians, okay, on our people back then. And it's the people that's in cahoots, all right, with the government that's in power, okay? And Jake wanted the perks. See, Jake wanted to be leaders of the people for the perks that come along with it, okay? Not for the embetterment of the people like Ananias. His whole mindset was the betterment of our people, okay? But then you had wicked niggas, they just wanted the perks. Just like these niggas today, they just want the perks, okay? So let's go back to, all right, 2nd Maccabees chapter 4, okay? It says, 2nd Maccabees 4:9 said, besides this, he promised to assign 150 more if he might have the license to set him up a place for exercise and for the training up of the youth in the fashion of the heathen, and to write them of Jerusalem by the name of Antiochians, which when the king had granted and he had gotten it into his hand to rule, he forthwith brought his own nation to the Greekish fashion. Okay, and the royal privileges granted of all special favor to the Jews by the means of John, the father of Eupolemus, who went ambassador to Rome for a meeting and aid he took away and putting down the governments which were according to the law, and he brought up new customs against the law. Okay. All this is happening, before Mattathias and his 5 sons, okay, came on the scene. It said, for he built gladly a place of exercise under the tower itself, and brought the chief young men under his subjection, and made them wear a hat. Now such was the height of Greek fashions and increase of the heathenish manners through the exceeding profaneness of Jason, that ungodly wretch and no high priest, that the priest had no courage to serve anymore at the altar, but despising the temple and neglecting the sacrifices, hastened to be partakers of the unlawful allowance in the place of exercise after the game discus called them forth. So now you had the priesthood abandon, their offices, okay, because of what this wicked nigga is doing, man. Okay, it says not saddened by the honors of their fathers, but liking the glory of the Grecians best of all. So this man is turning out the priesthood, okay, by reason wherefore sore calamity came upon him, for they had them to be their enemies and avengers, whose custom they followed so earnestly, and unto whom they desired to be like in all things. Okay, and that's how the Most High will get down. Whatever heathen that we would start following, okay, whatever heathen, okay, that we started learning their ways, how about Shema Shah will allow those heathens to have their way with us, man. And we're gonna get it. Okay. And I'm gonna jump down. Verse 19, it says, this ungracious Jason sent special messengers from Jerusalem who were Antiochians to carry 300 drachms of silver, okay, to the sacrifice of Hercules, which even the bearers thereof fit not to bestow upon the sacrifice, because it was not convenient, but to be reserved for other charges. So they were sacrificing unto Hercules, okay, wilding, man. Okay, Jake wilding under this wicked rulership, man, and it gets worse. Okay, now this is 2 Maccabees 6:2. It says, not long after this, the king sent old man of Athens to compel the Jews to depart from the laws of their father, and not to live after the laws of the Most High, and to pollute also the temple in Jerusalem, and called it the temple of Jupiter Olympius, and that in garrison of Jupiter, the defender of strangers, as they did desire that dwelt in their place. The coming of all this mischief was sore and grievous to the people, because you had people that wasn't with it, man. A lot of our people that wasn't with it. It said, for the temple was filled with riot and reveling by the Gentiles, who dallied with harlots and had to do with women within the circles of the holy places, and besides that, brought in things that were not lawful. Okay? And it says, the altar also was filled with profane things which the law forbiddeth, neither was it lawful for a man to keep Sabbath days or ancient feasts, or to profess himself at all to be a Jew. Okay? So what were they calling themselves, man? Antiochians, Greeks. All right? and it gets worse, man. I'm gonna go back. So there was a lot of things that played a part, okay, that led to the rebellion, that we always read about, the revolt. So let's get
most radical policy was to allow non-Jews in Jerusalem to set idols of their gods within the holy temple itself. The fact that the high priest was openly tolerating and even promoting the polytheistic gods was deeply disturbing to many Jews who clung to their monotheist faith. Dissent was especially strong in the poorer rural communities of Judea, who had clung far closer to Orthodox Judaism. A strange situation was made worse in 175 BC, when one Antiochus IV Epiphanes became the Seleucid Basileus. Was deeply disturbing to many Jews who clung to their monotheist faith. This sentiment was especially strong in the poorer rural communities of Judea, who had clung far closer to Orthodox Judaism. A strange situation was made worse in 175 BC, when one Antiochus IV Epiphanes became the Seleucid Basileus. Various ancient accounts describe him as a proto-Nero or Commodus, that is to say, erratic. His sobriquet, Epiphanes, meant manifested from God, but among his people he was secretly known by a variation of the title, Epimanes, which meant madman. It was him who in the first year of his rule supported Jason's coup against Annius III, hoping a pro-Greek high priest would help Hellenize the Jews. However, only 3 years later, Antiochus decided that Jason wasn't Hellenizing Judea fast enough, so helped replace him with an even more pro-Hellenic priest, Menelaus. With that matter settled.
So the fun thing with the serpent is, how does a serpent talk? What, and not only that, but why is the serpent's punishment to crawl on its belly when that's what it does?
Matter settled, Antiochus then marched with his armies into Egypt, aiming to double the size of his empire by seizing the Ptolemaic heartland. While the king was preoccupied, Jason seized his opportunity and returned to Jerusalem, initiating a counter-coup and expelling the deeply unpopular Menelaus. However, Antiochus's campaign was cut short when the Roman Republic intervened on behalf of the Ptolemies. Unable to match the strength of the legion, the king was forced to retreat to Syria. Already utterly humiliated by Rome, Antiochus's mood turned wrathful when he found out that his subjects in Jerusalem had rebelled. He stormed Jerusalem with his army, slaying the supporters of Jason and reinstating his puppet Menelaus as high priest. He then left Apollonius in charge of subduing the city, who accomplished his job by dismantling the walls of Jerusalem and building a fort named Acra on the nearby hill of Ophel, so everyone could gaze upwards and see the symbol of King Antiochus's power. Rather than leaving good enough alone, Antiochus began to actively exterminate Judaism, forbidding the people of Judea from observing the Sabbath, circumcising their sons, or performing other rituals. He had the Holy Temple in Jerusalem converted into a temple of Zeus, within which he personally spilled the blood of a pig, a deeply sacrilegious ritual to the Judaic faith. The king declared that the Jewish people should begin worshipping the Greek gods. Hellenized Jews accepted these changes, but many did not, resolving instead to fight. It is here that the Maccabees enter our story. Our story now shifts to the small Judean town of Modin, where a local priest, Mattathias, and his 5 sons lived. They belonged to the relatively minor Hasmonean family and were deeply Orthodox Jews who had remained true to every tenet of their religion, even as their countrymen became increasingly assimilated into Greek culture. Sometime in 167 BC, a Seleucid official arrived in Modin and compelled the townsfolk to offer a sacrifice to the Greek gods. Mattathias refused to make this offering, and another one of the townsfolk, a Hellenized Jew, stepped forth to do so in his place. Flying into a rage, Mattathias drew his knife and murdered his countrymen before he could perform the ritual. The priest then cut down the Seleucid official as well, and destroyed the pagan altar for good measure. Knowing they would be branded outlaws, Mattathias and his 5 sons fled into the nearby hills, followed by many like-minded Orthodox Jews known as the Hasidim. From there, the fight had begun. While Mattathias died sometime in 166 BC from causes unknown, he would be succeeded by his 3rd son, Judah, a dynamic young commander who, through a mixture of ferocity, ruthlessness, and bravery, would come to be known as Maccabeus, a word deriving from the Aramaic Maccaba, the hammer. At the early stages, the rebellion was not a struggle between Jews and Greeks, but a civil conflict between pro- and anti-Hellenic Jews. The Maccabees began their movement with a terror campaign, launching lightning raids upon predominantly Jewish towns. They killed many of their own countrymen who they considered too Greek, burning down their homes and destroying the pagan altars where they worshipped. Most notably, they rounded up the sons of Hellenized Jews and had them forcefully circumcised. The message was simple: Greek culture was to be purged from Judea. Before long, the Maccabees had earned the attention of the military governor Apollonius, who resolved to crush the rebels before they could sow any more chaos. In 167 BC, after gathering a local army of around 2,000 men in Samaria, Apollonius marched south to the Gophna Hills, where it was said that the elusive Judah was hiding out. Here, the Maccabees proved they were capable of more than just murdering civilians and burning altars. Knowing they were outnumbered and out-equipped, Judah deliberately lured the enemy army deep into his native territory, where the hilly terrain made it impossible for the Seleucids to form up into their Macedonian phalanx. With only 600 men, the Maccabees surrounded and ambushed the Seleucid forces just outside the town of Wadi Haramia, routing them off the field. Apollonius was killed in the fighting, and Judah claimed the fallen commander's sword, wielding it as a symbol that his rebellion had been blessed by God. The Maccabees followed up their victory with another in 166 BC, ambushing an army of 4,000 Seleucids led by Seron at the Beth Horon mountain pass. These 2 victories would set the theme for much of the revolt, in which smaller, poorly armed contingents of Maccabean warriors would utilize terrain-based guerrilla warfare to consistently outwit the well-armed Seleucid armies that outnumbered them greatly. Later that year, Antiochus IV was forced to take the bulk of his armies eastwards to deal with a Parthian invasion, putting the local governor of Syria, Lysias, in charge of quashing the growing Jewish revolt with limited resources. Despite this,
I'm Nick Nimmin, and I'm a StreamYard user. For the last 6 years, I've been live streaming consistently to YouTube and Facebook and everywhere else on the internet that would have me. And during that time, I've had the
Lysias managed to field a significantly large army of some 10,000 professional Macedonian-trained soldiers. He put 2 experienced commanders, Gorgias and Nicator, in charge of this force and sent it into Judea. The Hellenes set up an entrenched camp at the town of Emmaus, while Maccabeus responded by leading around 3,000 Jewish warriors to the adjacent town of Mizpah, where they fasted and prayed to God to deliver them victory in the battle to come. In the days that followed, some of the local anti-Maccabean Jews informed the Seleucid commanders where Judah had set up his base. Seizing the opportunity to catch his enemy flat-footed, Gorgias rallied some 5,000 infantry and 1,000 cavalry and marched for Mizpah. However, his heavily armoured Argyraspides were slow and cumbersome, and their presence was soon picked up on by Maccabean scouts. Rather than face Gorgias's force head-on, Judah decided, rather ingeniously, to abandon his camp, taking advantage of his army's speed and maneuverability to skirt around the expeditionary force and strike instead at the now more sparsely populated camp at Emmaus. Taken completely by surprise, the reserve forces in Emmaus were either slaughtered or routed, and their supplies looted or burnt. After failing to find any rebels in Mizpah or the surrounding hinterlands, Gorgias returned to his camp, only to find it aflame. Seeing this, the morale of his army was crushed and they fled for the coast. Reeling from yet another decisive defeat, the high priest Menelaus in Jerusalem, with the support of Lysias, attempted to bring Judah and his cohort to the bargaining table, offering to repeal some of the more egregious anti-Judaism laws of Antiochus. However, these negotiations failed, for the Maccabees would accept nothing less than the total eradication of Hellenization in Judea. By 164 BC, Governor Lysias had taken it upon himself to assemble and lead an army of some 20,000 men in Antioch, leading them south through Idumea and the valleys east of Gaza to a town called Beth-Zur, where he encamped his army in the local fortified citadel, hoping to strike at the Maccabees' southern flank. By this point, Judah Maccabeus had some 10,000 men under his command, his numbers having swelled as the reputation of his victories grew. Nevertheless, he was still outnumbered and outgunned by Lysias' army, so he stuck to tried and true tested methods to best his foe. Historical sources are vague on how the Battle of Beth-Zur played out, but it seems evident that the Maccabees spent the next few months harassing the Seleucids through hit-and-run tactics, striking at foraging parties, patrols, and any platoon of Syrian Greeks unfortunate enough to be caught outside the town's citadel. This was never enough to earn a decisive victory, but it was enough to keep Lysias and his army consistently on the back foot. The status quo changed in late autumn, when in the Far East, the Seleucid Epiphanes contracted disease while campaigning against the Parthians and died. The monarch's death meant that his son, the 10-year-old Antiochus V, was now Basileus of the Seleucid Empire, and there would be no small amount of courtiers willing to influence the young boy for personal gain. Suddenly, Lysias's priorities had shifted, and he was compelled to return to Antioch to secure control of the infant king in order to keep his power and influence in the royal court, which meant that the campaign in Judea was over. Due to his persistence, cunning, and some plain old luck, Judah Maccabeus was victorious once more. With his victory at Beth-Zur, he was able to march his army more or less unopposed to Jerusalem, which, ironically, he was able to stride right into because the Seleucid governor Apollonius had destroyed its city walls a few years earlier. Following this, the Hellenized and other Seleucid loyalists retreated to Acre. Now firmly in control of the holy city, the Hammer of Judea entered the temple, destroying the altar to Zeus and the idols that had been erected during the reigns of Jason and Menelaus. His youngest brother, Jonathan Apphus, was installed as the new high priest of Judea. Among the sacred objects to be restored was the menorah, a golden candelabrum whose 7 branches represented knowledge and creation. It was supposed to be kept burning every night, but its light had been extinguished during the persecutions. However, the temple had been so thoroughly pillaged that there was only enough oil to keep the candles of the menorah burning for 1 night. Despite this, once lit, the candles burned bright and true for 8 full days. This supposed miracle of God is the cornerstone of Hanukkah, and to this day, when Jewish communities around the world light 8 candles on their menorahs, they commemorate each day the light burned for Judah Maccabeus and his freedom fighters. Jerusalem may have been taken.
Hey, you! Me? Yeah, you! Don't you want to play something different? Bring it up!
And that was, pretty much the point on it, as we see, all the events that happened, leading up to the revolt, and if you want to, go deep into this story, You can read, First and Second Maccabees, and it should, come together because there's a lot of history in both of those books, but it should come together a little better, after seeing the video. But if you want to watch the rest of the video, there's about 7 more minutes left. That's the link to it. You brothers, you sisters want to watch the rest of it, you can go to and watch the rest of it. Pretty informative. Okay. But now, as we can see, why you go to the New Testament, that certain things was written in a particular way. Okay. Just to get some examples. Okay, if a brother could post, let's get Romans 1 and Romans 1 and 16. Okay, let's get Romans 10 and 12. Okay, and let's get Galatians 3 and 28 and 29. And let's get Colossians 3 and 11. Okay, because you got to think, why was Apostle Paul mentioning the Greek so much, in his epistles? Okay, why was he, always speaking of, the Greeks? You see? And let's get, I might get that in the blue letter just to. Because if the Christians who make the claim is if Apostle Paul opened up salvation to everyone, well, why didn't he ever go through an exhaustive list of all the nations of the earth? Okay, because the Apostle Paul knew about, okay, the biblical nationalities. He called himself a Benjamin, all right, Benjamite, all right, from Israel. He called himself an Israelite from the tribe of Benjamin. Okay, and then he also spoke on Esau, Edom. So the Apostle Paul knew all the biblical nationalities. Okay, but when he was speaking of Greek, he wasn't referring to a nationality. He was referring, okay, to a culture. Okay, as we seen through that history, what our people went through. Okay, so when he was speaking of the Greeks, he wasn't referring to a nationality. He was referring to a culture. Okay, because like I said, if Apostle Paul was opening up salvation to everyone through his message, through his teachings, why did he not go through an exalted list, okay, of all the nations and their nationalities, man? Okay. So let's get a couple of them. All right, now this is the brother Issachar serving Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua. This is Romans, okay, 10 and 12. It says, for there is no difference between the Jew and the Greek. Okay, why is he constantly mentioning Greek? For the same Lord over all is rich unto all that call upon him. And see, what we have to understand, scribes and Pharisees were descendants of the Maccabean revolt. Okay, remember, before the Maccabeans even started fighting those Greeks, they pretty much was purging Israel from our people that was Hellenized, man. Okay, so there was a heavy disdain for our people, okay, that was Hellenized. So when the apostle Paul, started going, well, really, Apostle Peter started off with Cornelius, okay, which was an Israelite, a centurion of the Italian band, okay, and then Apostle Paul started going into, the different areas of Asia Minor, which was heavily Hellenized, okay, and Jake and Judea was losing it, man, because they understood the history. They knew about all this history that we just went over, man. There's a lot of history between the circumcision and the uncircumcision, man. Okay, That's why it was such an uproar. All right, because they looked at them as traitors, man. But through Yahushua, they was able to come back through repentance, man. Okay? This is the brother Bayan Yasha'Allah. Romans 1:16 says, For I am not ashamed of the gospel of Yahushua, for it is the power of the Most High to salvation to everyone that believeth, to the Jew first, and also the Greek. Okay? Speaking of what? Hellenized Jews, man. People that was Hellenized. Okay? You go Galatians 3:28. Galatians 3:28, there is neither Jew nor Greek. Why is he constantly bringing up this same, okay? He's constantly bringing up the same thing. Why does he never go into all the other nations? Okay, because Greek is really not a nationality, it's a culture. Okay, and Esau, Edom dominated that culture. Okay, because the original Greeks were Japhet. Okay, so Greek is more so of a lifestyle, a culture, a belief system than a nationality, man. Okay, it said, There is neither bond nor free, there is neither male nor female, for ye are all one in Hamashiach Yahushai. Okay, because through Yahushai, Yahushai was bringing everyone back to repentance, man. Okay, all the believers, whether you were of that Greek culture and you was beginning to repent and believe, okay, or whether you was born in Judea and raised up in the law, Yahushua, all right, was a savior for all, man, of Israel, beginning what? With the elect. And it didn't matter the culture you was brought up in. Now you go to Galatians 3:29, says, And if you be Yahushua, then are ye of Abraham's seed, okay, showing you that it's a lineage and heirs according to what? The promise. And the promise was only made to one nation of people, man. Okay, so you get this one from the brother Bayan Yasha'Allah, Colossians 3:11. It says, Where there is neither Greek nor Jew, circumcision nor uncircumcision, barbarian, all right, Scythian, bond nor free, but Yahushua is all and in all. Okay? And I want to get this real quick. And you get ready to close out. And I pray this was edifying. I thought that video would kind of, paint a good picture for, the Maccabean history. Okay. Well, let's get this real quick. Now we go to Acts the 6th chapter. Okay. It says, in those days, when the number of the disciples were multiplied, there arose a murmuring among the Grecians against the Hebrews because their widows were neglected in daily ministration. Now, let's go to different translations. All right. This is Acts 6:1 in the NLT. It says, but as the believers rapidly multiplied, there was rumblings of discontent. The Greek-speaking believers complained about the Hebrew-speaking believers, saying that the widows were being discriminated against, all right, in the daily distribution of food. So these are both Israelites, okay, but they were speaking different languages. Okay, go to the NIV. And in those days when the number of disciples were increasing, the Hellenistic Jews, okay, that is the Jews who had adopted Greek, all right, the Greek language and culture, okay. In those days when the number of disciples were increasing, The Hellenistic Jews among them complained about the Hebraic Jews because their widows were being overlooked in the daily, all right, distribution of food. Okay? Because you still had what? Their contention, man. Okay, and they had to be broken down. And that was through Yahweh Shai. All right. It's Ephesians 2:11. It said, wherefore, remember that ye being in past Gentiles or Hellenized Jews, okay, in the flesh who are called uncircumcision by that which is called the circumcision in the flesh made by hands, that ye, all right, that at that time you were without Yahweh Shai, being aliens from the commonwealth of Israel and strangers from the covenants of promise, having no hope and without the Most High in the world. Okay, they were strangers of the covenants because what? They was brought up in the ways of the Greeks. Okay, that culture, that Greek culture dominated that area long after Alexander, man. Okay, it says, but now in Yahweh Shai, Hamashiach, ye who were sometimes far off are made nigh by the blood, that sacrifice of Yahweh Shai. Okay, they was far off from who they were. Okay, just as we were far off from who we were. Okay, we was Hellenized. Okay, it says, for he is our peace, who have made both one and have broken down the middle wall of partition between us, man, of the uncircumcised and the circumcision, man, and then eventually even the northern kingdom, having abolished in the flesh the enmity, even the law of commandments contained in ordinances, for to make in himself twain one new man, so making peace, because it was a great falling out between the circumcision and the uncircumcision, man. Okay, as we seen, them niggas was wilding back then, man, to the point that they had to go to war with the Greeks. Okay, there was war between, all right, our people and the Greeks, man, about this Hellenization. Okay, so Yahweh Shai came as that peacemaker, man, between those that will repent and believe. Okay, and that he might reconcile both unto the Most High in one body by the cross, having slain the enmity thereby. Okay, that hatred. Okay, and came and preached peace to you which were far off, and to them that were not. Okay, the uncircumcision and the circumcision. Okay, for through him we both have access by one Spirit unto the Father. Okay, now therefore you are no more strangers and foreigners, but fellow citizens with the saints and of the household of the Most High. And that's why Yahweh Shai represents what? The new priesthood, because the priesthood was so corrupt. So Yahweh Shai represents that new high priest. Okay, and he's in the heavens vouching for all the believers and those that are repenting, no matter what culture they was brought up in, man. Okay, and are built upon the foundation of the apostles and prophets. Okay, because the apostle was sent forth to the believers. Okay, and this is what? Fulfilling the prophecies. Yahweh Shai himself being the chief cornerstone. Okay, and this is a spiritual rebuilding of Israel. Okay, in whom all the building fitly framed together groweth unto an holy temple in the Lord. Okay, in whom ye are all builded together for an habitation of the Most High through the Spirit. Okay, that's what the New Testament is going into, man. Okay, not opening up salvation to the earth. Okay, that ain't what that means, man. Okay, no, it's closing the breaches and the gaps between, okay, the falling away of our people, man. He's bringing back. Yahweh Shai was the bringing back of the falling away of our people, man. And how much more in this time when we all fell away. Okay, this is the hope for elect 3. 1 Peter 2 and 10 says, which in time past were not a people, but are now the people of the Most High, which have obtained mercy. Okay, which had not obtained mercy, but now have obtained mercy, because it was a time when our people that was Hellenized, they weren't receiving mercy, man. Okay, but then Yahweh Shai was that mercy opened back up into our people that was Hellenized, man. Okay, and all of us, man, we was all in the temple because Judea was wilding out still. The leadership had got back corrupted. Okay, it said this is on 2 Peter 3 and 1. It said this second epistle, all right, beloved, is from the brother Bayan Yashala. I now write unto you in both which I stir up your pure minds by way of remembrance. Okay, remembering who we are, remembering the way. Okay, remembering the way. Okay, Yahweh said, I'm sent to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Okay, and who was more lost than than our people that was Hellenized, man. Okay, Romans 9:26 is brother hopeful elect, and it shall come to pass that in the place where it was said unto them, you are not my people, there shall they be called the children of the living power, man. Okay, and that's what we're seeing happen today. Okay. We're being put back in remembrance, man. Okay. 2 Peter 3 and 2. It said, this brother Bayan Yashala, it said that you may be mindful of the words which were spoken before by the holy prophets, and of the commandment of us, the apostles of the Lord and Savior, man. Because all these things that we read about is prophesied, man. Okay. You can go into the prophecies and get, the prophecies about these events that will take place, even to where we're at now, man. Okay. So that was the point. I just want to bring that out. Lord will, you brothers, okay, you few sisters were, edified. All right. Because this is prophecy fulfilled, and us being Hellenized in this time have been brought back, man. Okay. And it just says Ananias, how the Lord was open to his request. Okay. We pray that the Lord Yahweh Shema Shai is open up to our request, man, and lift a standard against the devil, man. Okay? So, Lord, will you will edify till next time I say Shalom. Kwam Yashala, Bible, Ball, DTA soon. Shalom.